Good morning again, everyone. When introducing Lee Stickle this morning, there was no way that I was coming to the stage by myself. I wouldn't do her justice for everything that she's done and the philosophy that she shares. Lee is all about collaboration, celebration of teaming, building relationships, and with her knowledge, skills, empathy, leadership, and humor, Lee has linked professionals, parents, individuals in the field of autism. So I'm joined today by a small group of her vast network. Her team from Kansas and the autism team from OCALI. And we would just like to take one small minute to say how thrilled we are to welcome Lee Stickle to the OCALICON stage. We hope you enjoy her presentation.
Wow, if that isn't intimidating, let me tell you what is. I get to follow two tremendous speakers. In Connor yesterday, I looked at the people who came with me from Kansas, and I said, you know, I'm really in trouble here. I don't have a book, I don't have a medal, and I don't know Kathy Lee Gifford. I got nothing. And then I thought, well, maybe people will sleep and they'll forget just how wonderful and engaging Connor was. And then we get to meet Justin, right? And you go, okay, he's funny, he's articulate, he's a self-advocate, he's everything that if I were a parent, which I'm not, by the way, I only have dogs, I found them to be much easier than children. That he's everything a parent would want a child to be, isn't he? I mean, what a great guy. Thank you again. When I was asked to present, I asked Sean, well, you know, what will I present on? Let's review the list. I don't have a book, I don't have a medal, I don't know Kathy Lee Gifford, and I'm not a poet. So what am I going to do? And he said, oh, just, you'll think of something. That was quite a long time ago. I sent them a presentation in October. This is not it, okay? So I thought about it, and I hope this can be meaningful for you. I'm gonna share some of the experiences that I've had, learning from different people, and how that learning is the basis of our relationships. You know, there's a very famous psychologist, his name is Dr. James Comer, and he says that no significant learning occurs without a significant relationship. And there are no more truer words than that. If you'll just reflect in your own life about what you've learned and who you learned it from and how much meaning it had, it always ties back to the people that you've had respect for, that care for you, that have done something that has developed that relationship in your life. You know, as educators, we really play a very unique role in the lives of children, in the lives of families, and in the lives of communities. If you think about the role that we play, we get kids longer than their own parents get them, their waking hours during the day. And we get to set the environment, the activities, and how we respond to kids. And as a result of those things, we impact those kids. And if you don't believe that, please resign if you're a teacher. And I mean that, please resign. You are impactful, you are powerful, and we have to use our superpowers for good. We absolutely do. So when we think about how we work with kids, remember, we set the stage. We're the ones who determine what environment that they're going into and what activities that they'll do, and making sure that those activities are meaningful, no matter the functioning level of the child at all. You know, in my life, I've had some really great role models and great teachers. And I'm gonna share some information about 3 adults that I think have been just tremendous people in my life. The first one probably won't surprise you. It's this little lady over here, and that's my mom. If you can't tell, I'll stand next to her. She's now a mini me because she shrunk so much, but she's just a little mini me as far as looks. And what my mother taught me very early was that people matter. Foundationally, in your teaching, in your interaction with other people, if you don't believe that people matter above all other things, you're going to have a life that is void of meaning. People matter. And if you take that as foundational in your approach to whatever you do, whether it's someone with a disability, someone who's fully able, someone who's differently able, someone who's pink, green, doesn't matter, people matter. And if you start from that point every day, and if you need to, write it down. I usually write it on the windshield of my car, because sometimes you need reminders, especially when you're driving. People matter, right? People matter. I know he just cut you off. People matter. I know we don't think he matters as much, but he still matters. He matters. Let him go, right? So people matter. Always remember that. Always remember that people matter. You know, the second person that I have had, who has had such an influence on me, is Brenda Smith Miles. And although she never said these words, have you ever had someone that you learn so much from by the way they live their life and the things that they do for other people? Brenda lives her life, and as a result of that, impacts others, because she lives her life because it's not about her. It's not about me. That's what she does. So when you're working, when you're engaging, when you're doing all of those things, when you're working with other people, it's not about you, and it's not about me. So if we remember people matter and it's not about me, all of a sudden, our actions and our work get funneled in the right direction. By enriching the lives of others, we enrich the lives of ourselves. You know, when I think about the kids that I've worked with, so many of them have had such a great impact because of their autism. But what I have really learned is something that I learned from Judy Indo. And I don't know if you know who Judy Indo is or not. I imagine so. She's really famous. But Judy said something one night when we were talking on the phone that really had a huge impact on me. And she said, you know, you can only do the next right thing in front of you. So let's look at the foundational pieces. People matter, it's not about me, and you can only do the next right thing in front of you. If you do those three things in your life, think of where we get to in our actions with other people and how much better things would be. This gave me permission to say, you know, I've made some mistakes. And I've made a lot of mistakes with kids, and you're going to hear about some of those in just a minute. It's okay to make a mistake, but you have to do the next right thing in front of you. And you don't make mistakes because you're trying to do it wrong. They just, sometimes things don't work out, right? So do the next right thing in front of you. Remember that people matter, and remember it's not about you. It's about the people with whom you work and the people with whom you interact. If we take that foundationally, then we can do so much more to build bridges between people and services, but between people and all of the silos that exist. So remember, it's always not about us. You know, I've had a lot of students in the years that I've worked. Last year, I celebrated my 30th year in education. And I'll tell you what, if you want to have a great life, become an educator, because it's just a wonderful thing to get to do. You know, some of the students that I've had in my life, in the upper corner over there is Clara, and Clara taught me something very early on, and she taught me to presume competence. It was the summer of 1995. Have you ever had one of those moments when you learn something and you remember exactly when you learned it? Clara was a great teacher. Summer of 1995, it was June. The Beach Boys were coming to Kansas City to an outdoor amphitheater. Clara loved the Beach Boys. She loved the song Barbara Ann. She loved it so much, in fact, her sister made a continuous loop for her. Thank heavens we had headphones in 1995, okay? Because it played all the time. She loved it. So I thought, wouldn't it be fun to take Clara to the concert over the summer? And why not take Jeff? Because Jeff has never gotten to go to a concert. We'll all have a great time. Off we went. I knew Jeff needed a lot of support in trying to inhibit his own behavior and knowing what was coming up. So we did a lot of pre-work with him. Here's where I didn't presume competence. I believed Clara would be just fine. Clara was considered low functioning. Clara was happy just to be by you. Clara was not a problem. You know, you have kids in your class that are easy, and then you have other kids that you better be at the top of your game. Jeff, you had to be at the top of your game. Clara, piece of cake. So off we went. I'm a teacher. I was cheap. I bought lawn seats. We didn't have seats. A lawn seat is where you put a blanket on the ground and sit down. Well, there we were sitting there, and Jeff had his written strategy, and he knew when he was going to buy a Coke. He knew when he was going to get a glow necklace. He knew not to take the funny-looking cigarettes from the people next to us and toke them. I wanted him to have the full experience, but I didn't want to take him home stoned to the bone. You know, I mean, how do you do that? How do you walk in and go, well, yeah, I'm not sure how it works with Ellaville, you know, but we're going to find out. So anyway, we're sitting there, and I'm working with Jeff. You know, I'm talking to Jeff, and I know Clara's just sitting there. She's going to be fine. It's not going to be a problem. Well, I was talking with Jeff, and pretty soon Jeff gets very, very anxious. Lee Stickle, Lee Stickle, Lee Stickle. I'm like, whoa, 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 what's wrong? He goes, Clara. And I look up, and it's like, Clara, right? She is weaving through the lawn seats, going through the seated area where people pay good money. The little guy in the yellow jacket says security on the back at concerts, went around him like an NFL running back, man. I mean, and so I'm like, Jeff, come on, we need to go. And he pulls out his written strategy. I cannot go, I'm not to leave the blanket. Guys, I'm telling you, it was at that point that I thought, I hate written strategies. I'm like, give me the dang paper. I scratched out one thing, I said, follow Lee wherever she goes, and off we went, right? By this point, Clara this is the stage, she's here, right? Why is she there? They started singing Barbara Ann. See, she thought that, well, Lee's kind of odd. She probably is just taking me to a park at night. Someone's got a big boom box. We're going to sit on a blanket. We don't know why. There's funny smells all around us, but whatever. They start playing Barbara Ann. Clara is up, and she is against the stage, man. I mean, she is there, and she's loving it. And I'm sure that some of you who are parents have been embarrassed by your children, but I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get her, right? So I go up to the little guy in the yellow jacket who manages to stop me, but not Clara. And I said, I need to go get her. And he says, you can get her? And I said, well, I think I can, you know. And he goes, well, who's that guy? I said, well, he's coming with me because it's on the list, you know. He's following me wherever I go. Got it? Okay, so off we go. And I knew all I had to do was just wait. If I just wait till the song's over, Clara's gonna, you know, come on, Clara. Oh, okay, boom, and she'll come back with me. And sure enough, we waited, the song was over, and I'm like, come on, Clara, let's go back. And she turns around, and that's when Brian Wilson bends down and goes, she really likes that, doesn't she? And I went, yeah, thanks so much. You just want to get out. I don't know if you've ever had that experience. Get me out of here. He goes, you can stay. And I'm thinking, you know, the people that spend $150 on seats don't think so, you know, because we're like in front of them, right? So Clara taught me that night to presume competence. She knew exactly what was going on. All of that IEP, sorry, this might offend some people, IEP mumbo jumbo, no more captured Clara than the man on the moon, right? It's not about the IEP, it's about the person. I didn't presume competence with Clara, and that was my mistake. And as a result, she taught me something. Sometimes you learn some lessons that aren't real fun. That was Wendy that up there, and she taught me it's not about the coffee. And here's another IEP story. We got this IEP and the reinforcement system and all the things that came with Wendy, and they said she really likes coffee. And I thought, great, I really like coffee too. We've got something in common. So I bought her an insulated coffee mug. because I had one. I thought, keep the coffee warm, it'll be better longer, you know, that kind of stuff. She never drank a sip of coffee, and she didn't want to go near the coffee cup. And so I was talking with her parents. That's a novel idea for some of us. If you talk with the parents, they really know a lot. So I talked with her mom, and I said, you know, she's not drinking the coffee. I don't like flavored coffee, but if she needs hazelnut or something, I'll get it. You know, what's the deal? And she goes, well, it's not about the coffee. I said, it's not about the coffee? She goes, no, it's about the cup. It's about the heat. She had a real sensory need to have that heat on her hands. I thought it was about the coffee because we presume from our perspective, what is this about? If someone says they like coffee, I assume you like to drink it because that's what I like to do with coffee. Never presume that your perspective is the same as the person with whom you're working. And that doesn't just go for people with autism. That goes for people in general. But especially when you're working with someone with autism whose perceptions are frequently different than ours. So Wendy taught me it's not about the coffee. Then we have Richard. And Richard taught me it's absolutely okay to find enjoyment in things that other people completely don't even know exist. Richard was a young man with pretty significant autism, nonverbal until they finally came out with some voice output devices, and then he just took off. Great guy. He liked to collect small, shiny things. In particular, he really liked the tops off of pop cans, and he would pop those little things off, and then he would put them in an empty 2-liter bottle, and he would just roll it and watch those different colors. And if you took the time to look at the bottle, it was incredible. Absolutely incredible. He's a really very smart guy to be able to find that in just common everyday things, right? Well, we had a school psych who said, you know, we need to not reinforce him with pop tabs. And I said, why not? He said, well, I don't know if you know this, but that's kind of odd. And I said, well, it might be kind of odd, but let's look at it this way. Richard wants a pop tab to be happy today. I want a Mercedes 350 SLK. Who's leaving here happy today? He says, oh, well, but don't you think it's odd? And I thought, well, what I think is odd is you, but I shouldn't say that, you know? By the way, I have a tendency to I'm kind of a loose cannon. I'm sure Sean is really panicked right now that I'm going to go somewhere I shouldn't go, but I promise I won't. This, my friends, was Jeffrey, and Jeff taught me that it is absolutely okay to ask for help. When we got Jeff, he had been in virtually every program in one of the biggest districts in the state of Kansas, and had summarily been discharged from all of those programs, and he finally ended up in our classroom. And I really struggled working with Jeff. Everything I tried did not work. I did not have the magic bullet for this kiddo. And as I was working with him, I realized that our restraint data, and this isn't a proud moment in my teaching career, but I can tell you about it now, our restraint data showed that it was ineffective and it was off the charts, and we needed to do something differently. So I called my boss, who was tremendous, and she said, well, I'll come over and I'll watch and we'll see what's going on. And this woman, very, very skilled educator, always dressed to the nines, had on real high heels, and she was there taking notes all day. And at the end of the day, she came up and she said, I think I know what's wrong. And I said, what's that? She says, you're not reinforcing him enough. And I can honestly tell you, I thought, I'm not reinforcing him enough? Okay, he got off the bus and whacked me with his book bag. He, on the way down the hall, he ripped into another room and stole a donut. And I am thinking of all of these things. I'm thinking, what am I supposed to reinforce? Are you kidding me? I'm not reinforcing him enough? I said, so are you going to be able to develop something and kind of show me how it works? And she said, oh, sure, I'll be back tomorrow. And I thought, and you're going to do this? And she goes, oh, absolutely. She came back, another beautiful outfit, another heels, and I'm thinking, these are not exactly the clothes that I would have chosen. Well, actually, I've got to be honest, I've never worn heels. But I mean, Even if I had worn heels, I wouldn't have worn them that day. And she got on that bus, which is where the problems started for Jeff back then. And he was sitting there, and he was not going to get up. He was not going to do it. And she said, I like the way you stayed seated on the bus. You're doing okay. Oh, look at you brought your book bag. And in the back of my mind, I'm going, Duck, it's coming your way. But was it coming into her way? No. She saw him. She was smart. She sees him pick it up, and she starts moving backwards down a bus aisle, which are kind of hard for me to navigate anyway, in heels, walking backwards, reinforcing Jeff for getting up and walking over and doing this. And I mean, he was virtually chasing her down the hall. By the time they got to the room, when he got there, she said, just put your bag anywhere, you've earned your reinforcer. And I'm like, wait, really? That's what it takes? And she said, yeah, that's what it takes. That's what it takes. He's been in an environment over and over and over again where there was no reinforcement. He couldn't ever get to what he was supposed to earn. And as a result of never getting it, he quit trying. I mean, wouldn't you? How many times do we fail? How many times do we fail? So when we're working with kids, if something's not working, they deserve something else. They have to have something else. Because there comes a point, no matter how resilient kids are, and they are incredibly resilient people, that people give up. And when they give up, it's so much harder to get them started and get them up moving. Don't ever let them give up, okay? Remember, people matter. It's not about you, and do the next right thing in front of you, and we'll be much better off for it. The last little guy that I want to talk about is Wayland. And Wayland was the first student in this program when it opened up. We got him, he was 13 years old. And he was, according to all the paperwork, classically autistic, which means he had a lot of the characteristics that they had back in probably the DSM-3 at that point. And as you looked at all of the information in the DSM-3, yeah, he didn't look at people, yeah, things were different with him. And I thought, okay, I've got kind of a good handle on him. Well, when we went camping, Wayland taught me, I am not that label, and I am not that piece of paper, and I am not any of those things. You can't believe in paper, you believe in people. So we went camping, which is a whole nother seminar. We're not even gonna talk about the camping experiences we've had, except for this one. And Wayland, when Wayland finally laid down that night to go to sleep, he looked at me and he said, Wayland lived in a town called Olathe, named Olathe. He says, the sun will come up in Olathe tomorrow? And I said, well, sure, yeah, the sun's gonna come up in Olathe tomorrow. You're right, it'll come up in Olathe. He lived with his grandma and grandpa. He says, Grandma and Grandpa will be in Olathe tomorrow when the sun comes up? And I'm like, yeah, Wayland, it's fine, they'll be there, the sun will come up, Grandma and Grandpa will be there, it's fine, buddy, you're okay. And he started crying. And I thought, gosh, I wonder what's going on. So the next morning, I called his grandmother and I said, everything's fine. I'm not asking you to come get him, but he asked these questions. Why would he do that? And she said, did he really? And he cried. She was absolutely thrilled that someone else had seen emotion in him because so many people found him devoid of it, right? He experienced emotions differently and he showed them differently, no big deal. But Wayland cried and I said, well, why was he crying? He says, every night, his grandpa puts him to bed and sings, You Are My Sunshine. And every morning, I wake him up with the same song. And I tell him, because you're here, the sun's gonna shine today, right? So here's a person described in paper by an expert that says, you know, it lacks empathy, doesn't connect with others, socially inept, all of those things that were on a paper that did not translate to a person. Remember, people aren't paper. They never will be. We will never capture people on paper. The next person I want to talk about is Jeff's mom, Phyllis. And I gotta tell you something, I learned more from Phyllis than I've learned from so many people that I've worked with. I learned that there is absolutely no love like the love of a mother for their child, nothing. I also learned from her that strength and the conviction of your principles and your beliefs, when you put those things together, that is the definition of grace. And that is exactly what Phyllis Young has, is grace. She has strength of conviction, she has passion, she has all of those things. I also learned from her that no matter how great the IEP was that we would create, and no matter how much information we tried to capture on paper, we would always miss the very best part of her son, and that was his humanity. You can't get humanity in a document. Don't ever try. You get humanity by looking for relationships and building relationships with other people. You know, there's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that's where teaming comes in. That's another thing that Phyllis taught me. You know, we were really lucky to have people early in our program's origination that were so skilled at so many things. And the biggest group that had the kinds of skills that we needed were the parents. They were some of the best teachers that we have. So, you know, when we think about bridges and building bridges, we have to remember that bridges are meant to provide access or to go around a barrier. Access is so important for all of us. We talk about access to the general curriculum. We talk about access to community events. We talk about all of those kinds of access. For so many people with autism, the curb cuts aren't there. Autism is by and large invisible. And because of that, people don't understand and they don't presume that we might need to make some type of accommodation. Accommodations are kind of tricky because a lot of people think accommodations are kind of giving in. Oh, we have to make this accommodation. Yeah, we do need to make those accommodations. We need to make them, but we need to make them not based upon the list or that's in your IEP bank. Do you guys have online IEPs where you can choose things from the bank? If you don't need the person, that bank of accommodations or modifications will do you absolutely no good. They're not gonna match the needs of that person. So remember, if you're building a bridge into access, you have to know the person to know, first off, where do we need to start the bridge, and second, where's it gonna end? Understand that where that bridge ends, there's gonna be another path for that person to take, and they're going on to bigger and better things. So we've got to make sure that we make those kinds of accommodations. You know, when we talk about accommodations, Judy Endo put it best, I think, in her book, Painted Words, and I'm sure that some of you attended her session yesterday. And if you didn't, I encourage you to buy the book. And one of the quotes that she's given me permission to use and to share this photo of one of her paintings says that based upon years of observation of numerous autistics, myself included, I can see that autistics pay a much higher cost for the accommodations that they make as compared to the neurotypical person. Part of the reason is the sheer volume of accommodations an autistic is required to make each day compared to the NT. I'm expected to make accommodations for you while you have the option to choose when, if, and how often you will make accommodations for me. You know, in all of the success stories that we've seen, and I mean, gosh, Justin's a success story, Connor's a success story, Jeff, Waylon, Wendy, all of these kids are success stories. In every one of those, there's been a team behind them. But in no way has that team understood the heroic, enormous effort put in by the individual to make the gains and advances that they believe are important. You know, as we think about working with kids and developing accommodations and knowing what they need, it is high time we begin to ask those kids. They deserve that respect, that dignity to say, what is it that you need? And we need to be respectful, listen, and accommodate them. Thank you. So what are our next steps? You know, we have to engage everyone and it's not a battle, it's a journey. If you're battling autism, you will lose. You will lose. You don't need to battle it. Stand next to it and go on the journey with it. You will go places that you will never imagine. Some of them good, some of them bad. Some of them because of the autism, some of them because of our incompetence as neurotypical people to understand autism. But we're going to take this journey together. So we've got to take the time to get everyone who's involved ready to work and ready to work with all of us. We have to base our work upon the facts that people matter, it's not about me, and that you only can do the next right thing in front of you. So we've got to share information, and we've got to empower people with autism to be great self-advocates and share their own information. So in the end, what is it that we need? We need more people like you. Everyone in this audience that is here trying to learn and going to different conferences and reading books and doing all of those things, we need more people like you. We need people that have the passion and commitment to make sure that things are going in the right direction, and the willingness to say when they're not, we need to step back and change it. Remember, going to a conference is great, but there's so many books out there, there's so much information. Use it, learn it, take some responsibility for your own professional development. You know, when we think about it, bridges, we need to build a bridge to high self-esteem, self-advocacy, interdependence, autonomy, not independence. None of us live independently. We don't want a life of someone to be served in isolation. We want them to be interdependent, and we want to make sure that there are no barriers to access. So the key question that we have to keep asking is, are we spending your time on the right thing? Because time is all we have. All of us have gone through really big budget cuts, and you know, there's probably more to come. Money doesn't always equate to quality. Quality equates to people doing the right thing and doing the best thing for the people around them. So remember, in closing, this is probably one of my favorite quotes. Never doubt that a small group of committed people can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. So get in your groups, enjoy your world, go out and change it. Thank you very much.
Looking for romance.
No. I didn't even know you had that song. That rocks. I'm waiting for security to approach, though. So.
How do you like that?
That rocks, yeah. That's cool.
So, all right, so Lee and I have known each other for over a decade. And from the moment we sat in the room together, I was moved by your presence and what you do. So one of the comments I have is, I know you listen to Brenda sometimes. Like, it's not about you, but for the next 3 minutes, it's about you. Okay?
I'll be back here.
Sometimes you can't listen to Brenda. It's about you for a moment. Always listen to Judy.
Yes,
but
always.
sometimes excuse what Brenda says. You just have to figure that out. Because, as you said, right, people matter, right, but it's not about you. And because of that's what you believe, it is about you. Like, leadership and folks know that these are the leaders we need. So we're in great hands when you have somebody like Lee. Know that sometimes I know, like, the bureaucrats, we get tired of people like me getting in the way, and what are they doing? But Lee, it matters, and she's serious. And when I need charged, I call Lee. And when I get off the phone, I'm like, all right, we can do this. Like, whatever it is, I'm fired up and going, we can do this, because Lee does it. It doesn't matter what it is. She's going to make it happen. And so the quote that I leave with is, Lee, that's what she says, make it happen. Like, quit talking about it. Just go do something, man. Make it happen. And so I'm going to present Lee with the I Want to Be Lee Stickle Award.
Yeah. This goes no further. Your wife would be upset.
And I do. I want to be Lee Stickle. I've told my friends that. That's who I want to be. So when I grow up, maybe, I want to be you. And you make such a serious impact. You just kill it. And we thank you for it. We thank you for everything, your time, your commitment, and making this real, because you are so real. And so not only did we get one award for you,
well,
we just had to order two. I just didn't know what to do with it.
So fit on one.
So we just figured we'd just give you 2 awards. So Lee, thank you. We love you.
Thank
we
you.
just can't thank you enough.
Thank you. You know it's my people. You just got to have good people. Thank you very much. I'm absolutely flattered, and as I just told Sean, we have been able to get a lot done in Kansas, but it isn't because of one person. It's because I work with the very best team on earth. When you get the right people in the right spots, things go well. In addition to that, we have, I think, one of the best leaders in special education in Colleen Riley and our leadership team at KSDE. We all know that we all work together, and that alone nothing good happens. When I'm alone, things go badly. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And see, again, she always gives it away, which is what we need. And I have a final note. Oh, yes, I can't forget. Justin is going to be in the OCALI booth after this. So Justin, thanks again, man. You just killed it this morning and blew us away. So another hand for Justin. Thank you all for being here. Make it happen. Believe what Lee said, and we just can't thank you enough. Enjoy the rest of the conference.